Welcome to What Work Teaches. I would like to first start with a thank you to the North East Combined Authority for funding this work to allow us to develop a North East evidence base for what works in education. Will this work in my school? This is one of the main questions we get asked when we talk to teachers about research. So in 2020, we started the What Worked Education to help teachers to robustly test what works and what does not work for pupils in their schools. So how do we do this? We do this using something called a micro RCT, which is a randomized controlled trial. Quite simply, we ask you, in this instance, to identify a group of target learners. And then, as a teacher, you complete a short pre-assessment task. What Work Teaches platform then randomly allocates these into an intervention and a comparator group. The intervention group will use this approach over the duration of the trial, and the comparison group will continue as normal. And then usually at the end of 4 to 6 weeks, both groups will complete the post-assessment test, which is the same as the pre. And if the intervention shows promise, you can then open this up to the comparison group. Is it ethical to withhold an intervention from a control group of pupils? Well, we use a waitlist design. So pupils in the control will have access to the intervention after the post-assessment has been completed. So you are only withholding this for a short period of time. And this allows you to find out, does this approach show promise in our school? We use typical practice. Pupils undertake teaching and learning activities that are similar to usual practice and participate in schools. We're just testing to work out if these work in your context. And we have anonymized data, in that all pupil data is anonymized by schools prior to sharing on the What Work Teaches platform. So head teacher consent is sufficient to participate in these types of evaluations. So What Work Teaches? We designed the platform over the last few years to help educators to set up, implement and test interventions in your school. We've worked closely with teachers over the last 3 years particularly to build a model that is firstly doable, in that it allows teachers to set up and run trials usually within an hour. And the way we do this is we have 3 short videos to watch. The first one goes through how to use the platform. The second one goes through the research and the intervention. And then the third one goes through how to implement this evaluation in your school. We then give you an intervention protocol to download. We then have a resource folder that contains all the materials you require, as well as a downloadable tracking spreadsheet. And then the trial wizard guides you through step by step how to run the evaluation in your school, and then produces an impact report at the end. So let's have a quick look at how this works. So once you've put your access code in, you will then have access to the trials that have been commissioned by the combined local authority in the North East. You then select the trial you want to run, and then you will see 3 short videos that you have to watch. The first one is the welcome. The second one then goes through the intervention, and then the third one on the implementation. We then ask you to download the research protocol, which is a record of the research that you're completing. And then the resource folder. Then click Next Steps, and then put in your start date and then end date. The next thing you have to do is select how many students you're going to include. We do ask for a minimum of 10 for small group targeted interventions. And then once you've done your pre-test, you then input your scores into the platform. We do include a tracking spreadsheet, which includes an anonymized student ID to a student in your class so that you can link them. And then we ask you just to identify, if possible, if they're free school meal status. And that's for secondary analysis. The next thing you do is click randomize, and then what you will see is they've been randomly allocated intervention control. Please log that into your Excel tracker. And then you move on to your post test at the end of the trial that's been delivered. So once you've delivered the evaluation and the intervention, you then enter your post-test data. And then you move on to the process evaluation. So the process evaluation is a quick survey that allows us to identify any potential barriers that you've encountered and to find out what the control students are using. And then once you've done that, you click Analyze, which then generates an impact report for your school. So this will report the improvement as percentage change, as well as the effect size. And right at the end of the report, you have any data that you've inputted into the platform as a record. And then once you've done that, you click Complete. And then that trial, as you'll see, is in the My Trial workspace. So when you're finished with that, or anytime you log in, then you basically just go to the My Trial workspace and you will find that trial there. Once you've completed it and you want to start a new one, you then just go to the trial directory. So that was a very quick demo on how you use the What Worked Teachers platform. And the reason why we do this at What Worked is to build an evidence base. So every single time a teacher runs a trial, the data then aggregates together to build an evidence base. So you can see here that in the pilots last year for the Year 1 number bonds fluency flashcards, 1 to 10, delivered in small groups, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 replications. It's been positive in 4 of the schools, and you can see that the overall cumulative effect is positive for this intervention. So finally, we're moving on to data quality. So our mission is to create a teacher-led evidence base that professionals can use to help inform the decisions that they make about teaching and learning in their school. Therefore, the evidence is only as good as the data that teachers input. So please ensure that you follow the random assignment and the data you enter is valid. As fellow teachers replicate each evaluation, we aggregate the data to create a cumulative evidence base. Together, we can build something special in education and help improve learning based on evidence-informed decisions. So that's the end of your welcome video. The next one is to move on to the intervention overview.